Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. Today we're going to be talking about Sonic Chronicles, the Dark Brotherhood. And I am joined, as always, by Billy the Groundhog Rothert.
I can't. Like, every time a thought comes into my head about this game, I just want to cringe and, like, turn 360 degrees and walk away.
That'd be too far. You'd be turning back to where you were.
There's a specific reference that I was going for, Pete. If you weren't part of the internet subculture, you wouldn't get it. You're not in the basket of deplorables.
Nope.
So
nope,
you
Billy,
don't get it.
Nope. And we are also, that dark voice, that deep voice, was Peter the Lemur Busby.
I'll take lemurs. Lemurs are pretty legit. Where is it they only live? Madagascar?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% certain. I figured that since we're talking about a Sonic game, and since everything is just name the animal, I figure we should have our own. And mine's clearly the penguin.
Yep. Well, welcome to the podcast, everybody. I would just like to give a shout out to one of the best times of the year. No, not Halloween. It's the start of the NBA season.
Yay!
And the Warriors have already lost. Yay!
Boo.
I don't know about basketball.
Yeah, it's fine.
The most I know about basketball I learned from Charles Barkley, Shut Up and Jam Guy Den. I feel like that's not the real thing.
Accurate, 100%.
I remember when Charles unleashed the Chaos Dunk, and it ended the league. Yes, I've been watching League Pass pretty regularly now, and it's great to have it back in my life.
It's glorious.
So, before we get to Sonic Chronicles, the Dark Brotherhood, we have feedback.
What?
Lit.
We have feedback. But before we get to the
feedback is on fleek.
Before we get to the feedback, I just wanted to issue a public service announcement. So this podcast, a little inside baseball, we were going to start this podcast about a half an hour earlier than we are right now. And the reason why we did not is because I was eating dinner. We had an impromptu dessert added to the dinner because my wife and I's mouth were on fire because she made tacos and she said that they called for chili pepper. And so we were at the supermarket and they didn't seem to have chili pepper. We couldn't find it. So they had something that said red pepper and then in apostrophe is cayenne. And I said, you just need spicy pepper, right? Let's get this cayenne chili pepper. It's spicy. Public service announcement, cayenne pepper and red pepper, like chili pepper, not same thing. You don't want to use one where it calls for the other. It's really bad. Don't do that. So you're telling me this is your first time visiting a spice rack?
No,
I'm telling you that the spice that we were looking for was not there, and we thought we could substitute another spice, but it would kind of be like, hey, I would like some French fries. Oh, sorry, we don't have those. Can we substitute
jalapeno peppers?
Jalapeno peppers. Oh, certainly.
I did that with regular mustard and dried mustard one time. The recipe called for like 2 tablespoons of mustard. I was like, well, I have dried mustard. That's probably similar. It's not. It's completely different.
It's not, but it turns out that the heat index on cayenne peppers is several degrees higher than...
Do you know what the units are?
No.
Scovilles. They're measured in Scoville units.
Yeah, so...
Pete only knows that because he's the plant whisperer.
Yep.
So
I've spoken to the peppers, and they've told me.
He's got close tabs on all his pepper Scovilles.
You know, birds can't... So the active ingredient in peppers that makes it spicy
are so fine with peppers.
It's capsaicin, and they can't detect it.
They cannot.
So you put a shit ton of peppers in your bird seed so the squirrels don't eat it.
Smart.
So, public service announcement, don't use cayenne when something calls for chili peppers. Don't do it.
My dad has multiple bird feeders, and our squirrels
plant podcast.
are just pissed off. No, you know what? I feel like we could go from deep listens to deep root systems.
Deep roots.
And Pete would just go ham.
It'd be seamless. The transition.
He would go mushroom. That's like the ham equivalent.
Okay,
Yeah, it's got that umami.
basically.
Keep that in line. Keep that in mind for April Fool's Day, and also Billy edit this part of the podcast out, and there we go.
Okay.
So now onto the feedback. We got an
hey,
email.
Gino, just do like a harder stop so that I can better edit. Just do like a 2-second pause and then go to that.
We don't have to actually edit it out. I was kind of joking about that, but maybe
Yeah,
it
we're gonna
wasn't.
keep that
Who's
in.
to say?
And we'll keep in this discussion of whether or not we're keeping it in, too. I like that.
That's what
All right.
professionals do.
Meta.
Okay.
So we have feedback this week. This is pertaining to Dark Souls for the Dark Souls podcast. So, Billy, this is mostly for you because
Okay.
I got a lot of Dark Souls opinions.
do you actually have Dark Souls opinion?
Not really.
Okay, great. I have Dark Souls opinions, but I was not a part of that podcast, so I'm not entirely sure. But here we go. This is coming from Kyle. He says, I have to push back on the Dark Souls does not have a story, it has lore discussion from the Dark Souls podcast. Dark Souls absolutely has a story, one that's apart from the obvious objectives, the character quests. As you progress through the game, you trigger NPC quests to advance to the next stage, and those are events that are actively happening alongside you, not ones established in the lore. Since it seems you guys didn't summon for the most part, it's likely that your quest lines got stalled in spots, but a few of them span most of the game and can be pretty compelling. This is a person's name, Sigmeyers, in particular, Sigmeyers. I understand wanting to make a distinction between the core narrative, what little there is of it, and the NPC quests, but I don't think that it's a coincidence that every NPC that isn't a blacksmith or a dedicated merchant has a quest to follow, or that the quest can diverge in multiple places depending on your actions and severely alter your experience, such as by removing/restoring the bonfire at the Firelink Shrine, forever changing Anor Londo, or discovering a completely different side to the First Flame story. The main objectives are few and far apart in my opinion, because they are meant to be major milestones at critical points in the plot diagram, while the NPC quests make up the meat in between. So there's a little bit more here. Jumping ahead, I would argue that Dark Souls has an opt-in story due partially to how the story is told, but also because it's a game that's meant to challenge you as a game. Making a more concrete narrative would have imposed on people who just wanted to play the video game part of it, but a story is definitely there for people who want it. As Billy mentioned, playing Dark Souls is about finding your unique experience in your journey through Lordran, and the beauty of Dark Souls is that it affords as much or as little narrative as you'd like. That's what makes it such a great game to me. P.S. Nice going. Forgetting to upload a podcast last week, Billy. That's fine. That was actually on me. We weren't able to record something due to a wedding. So that kind of threw a wrench into a week. And then PPS, I dabbled in Magic about 10 years ago, and that's it, but I quite enjoyed the Magic podcast.
Thanks, bruh.
This show gets me through long days of working in the back of my store, so any content is always welcome. Thank you, Kyle. So,
Good
Billy,
feedback.
what did you think?
So I was sort of preparing as much as I could on the fly in response to Kyle's valid objections. My knee-jerk response is that, yeah, there are, I guess I would divide Dark Souls into now three pieces. And, Kyle, when you listen to this, I hope that you can sort of see it from my side. This is my very first playthrough of Dark Souls, so I got a very superficial look. I haven't done like a bunch of replays or replay throughs, so if I'm off the mark, we'll maybe have another discussion about it somewhere way down the line about Dark Souls. But here's what I think of it as right now. There is Dark Souls lore, which is everything that the game doesn't give you up front, like all the item descriptions that you have to look for and read, all the little character dialogues that might be hidden, or things that you can find out about Lordran's history. It's rich, deep lore, but that doesn't actually come into play very much on like the very superficial playthrough of the game. I think that's in one section. I think in another section is the number crunching part, where a person who's played the game 12 times is just trying to find out how to min-max everything about the game and get through it as like a big logic puzzle to just break Dark Souls. That's one portion of the game. And then I think this third portion that maybe I didn't talk about enough is my experience as my character going through this adventure. And if I say that Dark Souls has no story, I would also then be sort of cheating myself out of what I made that character do. So there's a story insofar as I played a character and that character did things. That is a story that was generated by me through my character. But I don't think that Dark Souls had like an overarching narrative that I was supposed to be following along. It was all generated by me and my experiences, because a number cruncher doesn't get what I got, and somebody who reads and kind of has to go outside of the game, like to a wiki or some guide to read the lore, gets something different.
And I think the main criticism that Kyle had was that there is a through line of narrative. If you're playing with the NPCs and talking to different characters, they will give you that through line that you didn't find because you didn't necessarily talk to those characters or summon them, because you can actually summon some NPCs to help you out.
Right. Like, I think there's one, for example, I forget his name, but he gives you the Ring of Favor and Protection. He's got like the gold armor and like the 2 scimitars. He's got a name, but I forget it. Everyone who's played Dark Souls knows this character for the most part. But there's a really cool story arc where you can sort of like go into his home world, and you do like a summon of yourself into his home world, like an encounter, and you kill him. And that's like a pretty cool piece of story. I didn't do that, but I knew that it existed. But I just maybe there's something that I didn't see. But like I said, I couldn't find an overarching narrative that I was supposed to follow.
That's the hard thing with Dark Souls, is that so much of it is opt-in, as Kyle describes. And unlike another game that we're playing right now, Final Fantasy IX, that all of us are playing, where there's the ATEs. Those are kind of opt-in storytelling. You press a button and you get a little dose of story. The game makes very clear, it blinks a little thing in the menu saying, hey, there's optional story. If you want to see it, press a button. And then it just plays, and you haven't missed it. With Dark Souls, there are multiple points where you can miss that particular piece of storytelling. You could not speak to the character. You could not have the right dialogue with that character to unlock whatever story they have. You can get into a fight with them by accident or on purpose. You can not summon them when you need to. So there's a lot of different ways you can stumble onto storytelling that allows this game to be a lot more fleshed out, that if you were coming in pretty blind, you might not even know that this game has those kind of options available, versus something like a Mass Effect or, a more traditional role-playing game where the mechanics themselves may signal very strongly what options are kind of available. You aren't surprised when there are romantic storylines in a Mass Effect, because romantic dialogue has been happening the whole time. Like, the dialogue
there's been hints and stuff.
The dialogue system shows that, like, when you say one thing to someone later on down the line, they reference something you said to them earlier. And it's Pete, you're screwing with your mic cable. So because of those mechanics being present, it is very clear that, hey, my dialogue and these characters that I bring along with me have ramifications. Whereas Dark Souls, if you're playing it like it's an action game, you might not have the expectation that, hey, this person I'm talking to, they'll come up again. Or, hey, if I summon them, they'll actually remember. Because in a lot of action-adventure games, like, you speak to NPCs and then they're gone, and then you have no expectation that they'll come back. Or if they're in combat with you, it matters in any way other than they're in combat with you. Like, there won't be a story ramification to that.
And now that I reflect more on my gameplay, and this is going to be sort of my final thought before I think we should move on. I guess I misunderstood when Kyle referred to summoning, but I actually did two kinds. One was when I summoned an actual player who was on their PS3 or whatever somewhere across the country, and they helped me fight a boss. And I did that once or twice in the game. And then there were other summons, because I played actually most of the game in offline mode, just because it was like I had my Ethernet cord doing something else most of the time. But I'd still find summons that I could do, and I would summon characters, but these were NPC characters that would help me. And I guess I did get more pieces of story. Maybe we just didn't talk about it in the podcast, but I think I probably got chunks of story, but didn't put it together that it was part of a bigger narrative.
Yeah, and that's one of the hard parts of Dark Souls, is that until people aggregate some of that information onto a wiki or something like that, it can be hard to tell whether the piece of information you had is completely detached from a larger narrative arc, or if it's a linchpin in some story.
And I think Kyle's got some ground to stand on, because it would be even more weird if all the NPCs were just there to serve a mechanical purpose and did not serve any kind of narrative purpose at all.
Yeah.
I think that'd be more weird. So the fact that Kyle and others may suggest that there is an actual narrative piece to Dark Souls besides just the huge background lore and besides just the number crunching aspect, that would actually be less weird than all the characters just being a mechanical stepping stool for you to get to the end of the game.
Yep. So thanks again, Kyle, for the feedback. All good feedback. And if you want to be cool like Kyle and get in touch with the show, go ahead at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have comment sections, and also deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. So without further ado, it's time to discuss Sonic Chronicles, the Dark Brotherhood.
Please don't.
Completely worthy of the drama you just injected into that title.
First question.
All right.
First question.
Story.
What are the chances that there is ever another entry in the Sonic Chronicles sub-series?
I can confirm through looking this up because I didn't finish the game fully. I feel like I needed to learn what it was all about so that I could have an intellectual discussion about it. I actually, for the record, hated this game and quit playing after about halfway through.
That's
good
fair.
open.
So I felt responsible to go learn at least what was going on. The game ends in a cliffhanger. That's not really spoiling anything yet, but it ends in a cliffhanger.
Yes, it does.
And then I learned that all further developments have been canceled or on permanent hiatus.
Of course.
Yeah. I was gonna say I don't know too much about percentages. I'm not a math guy, obviously. I don't think they can go negative, but I'm gonna say negative 2,000%.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So let's start with the mechanical breakdown as we are wont to do. But before that,
We're not going to hit
Billy,
story.
Billy,
we don't have to
do your thing.
Maybe we shouldn't.
Okay, I will summarize what this game is. I'll do it. I'll take that mantle to my. Or no, Pete, you do it for a bit.
Okay, all right,
do
I'll
your
give it a
best.
shot.
Okay.
So,
I just didn't want to have
Yeah.
a hand in this.
you have a series of anthropomorphized animals.
Starting
So-
strong.
Right? All right, so they're fighting Eggman, as they are wont to do. The fight ends, and then we find out, oh no, Knuckles has been captured by the Nocturnus. We're not really sure what the Nocturnus is initially. And then it ends up we have to go rescue Knuckles, and then eventually you have to go, as Sonic games typically unfold, you have to go find the Chaos Emeralds, which the Nocturnus has also stolen.
Oh no.
And as you get these emeralds, you sort of jump around from location to location, finding more and more Sonic friends that join your party to fight alongside you. And then I think that's probably pretty general. If we get any further than that, we'd be getting into spoiler territory, I imagine.
We would. And you
Yep.
fight in kind of... This is a profoundly weird game. So the reason why I picked this game in the first place was because it seemed like a weird artifact, like a cultural artifact of where the world was... What was happening?
No.
How did this happen?
Yeah, as a cultural artifact, it's very important. I mean, I can't think of a day that's gone by where somebody hasn't mentioned Sonic Chronicles, the Dark Brotherhood. Did I get that title right?
Yep, you did.
To me in my daily life.
It's a weird... This game is a profoundly weird, and the first thing that I find... So, it's made by... This is a role-playing game made by BioWare. The Mass Effect people, the Dragon Age people, they made this game. And I can only assume that this was made because of Super Mario RPG, which was the collaboration between Squaresoft at the time and Nintendo to make a Mario Brothers role-playing game.
Does the timeline link up?
No, Super
Mario
Mario RPG
old,
came out
right?
like 2 decades before.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Sonic Chronicles. But I feel like Sega, at the time when they were making this game or having this licensing Sonic out to BioWare, however this got done, I think it was probably Sega contracting BioWare. By the time this was happening, Sega was not in a good place.
No.
I feel like they were probably trying to capture something to get back in the game. They were in the we need to get back in the game sort of space.
This was their moonshot.
And you know how they're going to do it. They're like, we have a property as good as Mario, and we know an RPG developer just as good as Squaresoft. And this is what happened.
And
So-
history was made.
So the thing that Yep, that's the appropriate response, Billy.
Just like in very intentional, overt sigh.
Really? It was pretty subtle.
So the thing that perplexed me the most when I first started playing this game, other than everything, is that this is a turn-based role-playing game.
Yes, it is.
This is... So BioWare doesn't really make turn-based role-playing games. This is kind of a weird... The closest analog to this game is probably Chrono Trigger, right?
Yeah. Or, yeah.
Wait, what do you mean? Is it weird that it's a turn-based role-play game? Or that BioWare made it?
That BioWare made a turn-based... This is almost a Japanese-style role-playing game. If it wasn't for the quest design, I would say that this is like a Japanese-style role-playing game. Some of the
But why do
level
you
design,
pick Chrono Trigger as the analog?
It's got team-up attacks. It's got a bunch of
True.
characters that you slowly gain access to, and as you gain access to different characters, they gain new team-up attacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have different elemental strengths and weaknesses, like, kind of. But I think Chrono Trigger is the closest analog, and it's weird. With a little bit...
Legend of Dragoon. I think about Legend of Dragoon, about some of its combat style. I think about, what was that game that you showed me?
Legend of Legaia?
Was it Legend of Legaia that had the like punch sequences?
Yes.
Yeah, so that kind of too.
And then it also, like, having the quick... So this game, when you pick a different... So you have your basic attacks that are just like hitting the attack button, and your character will do a regular attack. But there are POW moves that use PP or power points. And they are your kind of special moves.
Is that why they were POW moves? Because they use power points?
I think so.
All right,
They actually couldn't call it POW from Mario because
That's what I was wondering.
copyright, obviously.
Yes. So the other thing that it reminded me of was Paper Mario.
That's a good game. Much better game.
Or the Super Mario RPGs that have come out since then. Because there
Like
are...
It's a lot like Mario and Luigi now that I think about it.
Superstar Saga?
Yeah.
You're
Does
not
have
too far
similar
off. I
timing?
played that game.
Well, they have similar timing-based attacks in that one, too.
Exactly.
They do, but they also have, like, in the world, like in the overworld, like moves that they have to do based on who's in front, who's in behind, and stuff like
Exactly.
that. So,
Just like Sonic Brotherhood.
so it seems
Sonic
like
Chronicles.
what happened here was
Good game.
this development team took a bunch of ideas that were really good and just ruined them.
Ruined them.
Kind of put them into a blender. It has so many disparate ideas, and I see a game that is better than the game that is in front of me.
Yeah.
Because in the combat system,
Yeah, I
Let's
see a
just-
bunch of games that are
Let's
better
just
than
jump right in.
Full
Let's just go
Frontier.
combat.
just in
Let's
let's
unpack the
start in
combat.
combat. Okay, so this is a turn-based role-playing game. Each of
There's
your
no
characters-
active time. This is all wait.
Yes, it is all you just input your commands at the beginning of the turn, and then the actions play out
The
based
whole
upon
turn
speed,
plays out.
which I assume that the speed being a big part of it was because it's Sonic. He has to go fast.
The first stat on every character is their speed, not
Of
their
course.
HP or their strength or their it's speed first. In every other RPG game, Gino, how far to the top is speed? It's usually like the bottom two.
Yes.
Usually like bottom of the first row, and then you
It's
get
usually-
like a crit or something.
It's usually last because S is pretty late in the alphabetical order. But no, Sonic speed first. So it plays out, but when you select these different commands, the POW moves all have a QuickTime event, or what? How else would you describe it?
It's like a rhythm mechanic.
Yeah, it's almost like a rhythm mechanic, but
It's
I think
somewhere-
QuickTime events closer to being the truth.
It's somewhere in between like an Elite Beat Agents style rhythm game and
Like the world's worst WarioWare minigame.
yes,
Would- how I
Yeah,
describe it.
basically.
except you have to play it over and over again. And the problem with this system is not that you have to input these commands to make the move, come out. But in a lot of the games we've mentioned, as this game reminding us of them, when you screw up the QuickTime event or the rhythm or whatever the timing is on like these moves, you just do less damage. or you do like the move is not as effective. Like in Paper Mario, if you screw up the timing on a head jump or something,
you just do like 25% damage or something.
You do less. In this game, if you screw up like early on in some of these QuickTime events, you just don't do anything.
You pass turn.
Yeah,
you lose all of your power points and do nothing. And some of these characters, like, it's not as though every single one of these power moves is just a brain-dead attack. Like, some of these characters are support characters that have healing moves and stuff that if you fail, you just lose the battle.
You shouldn't be able to fail your heal.
Yes. And so I just found that early on, so the first time I used any move, I probably failed it because I didn't know the timing yet.
Right, fair.
Unfortunately, they throw you in the deep end pretty quick in terms of when enemies will be capable of killing you. And so I found that if I was just using a move and screwed up, it was like my life. I was probably dead.
You could lose a character, for sure.
Very easily.
And they ration PP points like it's chocolate in World War II.
Yes.
Like, those things are tiny.
You can use like one POW move in an encounter.
Yeah, and then it's it. You're done.
Now, I want to jump into another part of combat that's going to tie into this, which is the three, I guess there's four things you can do, okay? You can do an attack, you can use a POW move, you can defend, and you can use an item.
And you
Did
can
I miss
flee.
anything?
Yeah, and you can run.
Oh yeah, you can flee, but I don't really count that.
Billy's
so-
never run in his life. So
Yeah. So two of these options take up one of your slots in your turn because you can see like in the turn order, you've got like multiple slots. Like Sonic usually gets one extra because
He
he's the
gets three.
fastest.
He gets 3. Most characters get 2, and
Most
some of the big heavy ones get 1.
Like Big the Cat usually got one.
He always gets 1.
because he's big.
But
I
you
love
can
Big.
have POW moves and item usage take up just one of those slots. If you do regular attack or regular defend, it fills all of your remaining slots. So you can't choose to like do an attack, then do a POW, then use an item. No, if you hit attack, your whole turn is attack. If you hit defend, your whole turn is defend.
Yeah,
and those
and once the turn order is decided, so you can see what the turn order is going to be for your characters. You can't see the turn order where your enemies are going to take their actions, but there are times when it makes sense to do a move last in this sequence. And that means that you can't have, like, for example, if you were going to heal someone's, do like a PP heal or something, right? To give someone power points back. You might want to do that last because,
Or first.
you know, they're going to use a move that uses up PP. And so you need to wait until they have used that move to then heal them. Well, that means you can't use your first 2 turns to attack. And you can't use to defend to take up those turns either. So you need to figure out some other way to use your first 2 turns so that the relevant turn, you can still use your item because they don't let you ration out these moves one at a time. It's a weird decision. I'm going to take a quick timeout. Timeout. Break,
Got it.
cut.
I got it.
What a game.
This is weird. I'm just gonna edit this shit tonight. I don't want to get up in the morning and have to look at this.
Leave this in. Like, leave in Gino.
Yeah, he's not gonna know. We're gonna just 2v1 make this decision. I don't know. I might cut the basket of deplorables line. Fuck, I can't do it now.
I mean, whatever you want.
Yeah, I know. I'm in supreme control over what this
I was gonna
podcast
say.
sounds like.
You're Lord of the podcast.
What else was I gonna cut out of here? I was gonna cut out basket of deplorables. I was gonna cut out something else. That sounded bad.
Well, Gino said to cut the thing, but we're not going to.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Do we? Oh, where we talk about deep root systems?
Yeah, no, it's good. Leave it in. Leave all
yeah.
this in, too. We'll just have, like...
The most meta discussion
just 5
podcast.
minutes of us just rambling in the middle.
God,
True.
deep listeners, we love you guys so much. We're just gonna leave you these tidbits of good shit. No, this is definitely getting edited out.
This is the deep story.
This is 100% getting cut. I'm writing the time signature down so that I know where to go look for it in the podcast.
Smart.
Now I gotta actually do that because that was a good idea. Notepad. Yo, Pete, something interesting. I don't know if you heard about this, but I'm picking up Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, as a DM?
Yeah, I am going to be DMing.
Yep.
And we almost did a podcast on that.
Nice.
But we decided instead that we're going to wait until I actually finish like a real campaign. Then we might do a podcast on it. And I don't think you'd have to be involved in this particular one.
I mean, I don't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons.
I played when I was like real little, like probably 10, 11 years old. And then again when I was a little older, like 13, 14.
I just know that there are Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
The reason, the impetus for us doing this now is some of my friends mentioned it. And I found a cool stream on Twitch that had a bunch of voice actors playing. And so they got really into their characters and they were super entertaining. And then I just mentioned it to my roommate and they're like, hey, we could just play. I mean, so some of our other friends mentioned that they had interest. So they said, well, naturally, Billy, you should be the DM as being the person who could just improvise bullshit on the fly the fastest. And be the most coherent storyteller.
Pretty accurate.
So now I don't get to play. I just have to be the universe referee.
You know who's super into Dungeons and Dragons? I think I've mentioned this.
Hold on. Stephen Colbert.
Not who I was thinking of. He's also
Vin
super
Diesel?
into Vinny the D. That's what I was thinking of.
I actually just watched a YouTube video where he played his character. I think oh man, what was his character's name?
I forget.
Like Colad the Witch Hunter or something like that. But he was like, he was into some D&D, man.
Colbert's super into Lord of the Rings too.
Yeah, I think Stephen Colbert. You know who else plays? Tom Hanks is really into D&D.
I could see like Tom Hanks getting into it. That seems like something to do.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the coolest mechanics that I've learned about being a game master so far is we're in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Everyone seems to really like it because they took out a lot of the bullshit and made it a lot more, like they sort of broke down some of the barriers of entry. So it's way more digestible for new players. And they simplified a lot of things, which some of the number crunchers don't like as much, but like it's way easier, more intuitive.
They don't like anything though.
They don't like fun. So there's this mechanic called inspiration. And basically, the game master can say, if you, the human outside of the game, were just really in character, it doesn't mean that just really lined up with your character's decision making. Whether it was giving like a really cool speech to try to persuade some other NPC to do something for them, or they admitted that their character has a flaw and they intentionally made a bad choice because they know that their character would have made that because their character flaw. The GM can like give them inspiration and say, you can do something better next time. You get like an extra dice roll on something better next time whenever you want. So it's pretty cool. It's a way to reward the players for like actually caring.
For like coming in costume and everything, like nice costume, extra dice roll.
Extra D10.
I was reading a story about some dude who had a heart attack from eating some spicy ass chili.
All right, Gino, you're welcome to count us back in, but Pete and I decided that we're not editing any of this out.
Yeah, we're keeping this whole discussion. We enjoyed it.
Then you edit out me saying.
No, that's
the reason.
Podcast. I'm expecting a lot of feedback on that.
We'll see how it comes out.
What? I don't like that.
You don't know what we were talking about. I just threw in that Dungeons and Dragons thing as a cover.
I will know.
Oh, yeah, because we have a recording too.
Yeah, so this game, it's really weird that, for whatever reason, it is the turn order, you can't completely pick how things are going to sequence. It's incredibly punishing with its
not turn-based. It's almost just, this is a round-based, not turn-based. It's round-based.
Yes.
Good distinction, Billy.
And let me tell you, as someone who tried to play this on the bus, if you hit a pothole...
Combat destroyed.
If you hit a pothole, if you hit a bump, if someone bumps into your arm, you just like lose a battle. It's like, oops, sorry, I guess your healing move didn't go off because
now you're dead.
Yep, the light turned green, so now you're dead, I guess. this might be one of the worst mobile, like in terms of playing this on the move, it might be one of the worst games I've played in a really long time.
Yeah.
Strictly in that sense. There's other reasons why it's the worst game, but strictly in the sense of it being a mobile game that you have to be perfectly still for.
Yes. It's just, like, the circles are not that small. I mean, not that big that you need to hit and, like, move in, and the timings are actually, I mean, they're not super tight, but they're
a little
enough.
bit tight. The one that got me the worst was the draw the line one.
Yeah, that always screwed me.
So specifically, I'm talking about Tails. Tails move like Metabot. If you messed up either of those two swipes, the whole move just whiffed.
Yep. All of the support moves, if you mess up any part of their QTE,
you just pass turn.
Yeah, you pass turn, and your character who was doing an important healing move just doesn't do it.
Now, let me think about what I think this game was supposed to be like, because I did some test battles like this, and it was kind of better. I think what you were supposed to do was every move you use like a POW move, and then you defend. Because defending makes you regain PP. So, like, a character who has pretty good... I don't know what stat makes you regain PP. Like, they don't have, like, int in this... Whatever. I don't know what...
I think it's either a percentage of your total POW or it's...
Yeah, probably speed makes everything better in this fucking game. So, you're supposed to like use a POW move and then regain like 30% of your PP back. That probably means you can do a couple of POW moves for each character per battle before you have to spam items to recover.
Yeah, yes, that is probably how they wanted you. They wanted you to use defend to restore your POW points, but there's just some basic structural problems. Like, there are 3 moves that heal your HP that I found. Like, there's actually 4. There's a couple of characters that have a leech. There's a character that has a move that steals HP. But other than that, Tails has a healing move. At one point, you get Cream the Rabbit, spoilers, and she has a healing move, and then Big the Cat can heal himself. And that's it. That's it for healing.
You can also heal with the things.
The items.
No, the creepy angel dolls.
Oh, the Chow?
The Chow. There we go.
I thought they were called KOs.
That's what I was looking at.
As opposed to chaos, but like it's a KO.
No,
not a chaos, but it's a KO.
I've heard it pronounced Chow, like in Italian. But
sure.
Yes, you can heal using Chows, and yes, you can heal using healing items. But the healing items are fairly limited. You get like 1 per battle, but the
unless
amount of damage...
Rogue uses like Thief, Steal on every single thing in every single battle, it's limited.
If you use PP to make Rouge the Bat steal from your opponents, that is another way you can get healing items.
Her name was Rouge?
Yeah, it's Rouge.
Not Rogue. Oh man, I was calling her Rogue the whole time.
No, Rogue, the U comes afterwards.
Whatever.
Yeah, Rouge the Bat. But at the end of the day, healing items, the amount of damage that your enemies are doing to you are usually greater than 1 healing item, and it's dispersed across multiple characters, and until the back half of the game, you don't get access to items that heal everyone, and you can't use POW moves outside of battle, so even if you have a character who can heal people, you have to do it in battle.
So one thing that I did like about the combat was that if you were good at these QTEs, you could dodge a good bit of enemy attacks. They would also just whiff.
Yeah.
So that's sort of balanced, that they could just pass turn, but you could also just pass turn. I don't know.
But at least to me, it seemed like the game was balanced around you hitting every QTE every single time, and not balanced for you to kind of, oops, I messed that up. Because some of the enemy moves, if you did not hit the QTE, hit like a Mack truck.
Oh man, there was some really early on enemies, like those little propeller shits that we used Buzzsaw. That did like 80% of a character's max health if you don't perfect the QTE.
Dude, Sonic's edgy, man. He's not going to hold your hand like Mario is. You know, you win or you lose in Sonic's world.
You ride or die in Sonic.
That's it, man. That's it.
So one last bit about combat, and then I don't have anything else to say after this, I think, is when we do
dip out.
Yeah, when we do the team up moves, that's cool. They usually do massive damage, but I think they're overcosted, having every single character have to spend basically their entire PP pool, and it's basically an all-in move on one enemy. So it's rendered less effective if there's multiple enemies on screen, because most of the time
it depends on the team up moves. Some team
Yeah,
up moves
some of them
hit single
do-
target, some hit all.
Yeah, right. So, but still, they all are basically using your whole squad's PP move, like at least 2 or 3 characters to spend their almost all their like mana pool basically. And again, if it whiffs, they're a little more forgiving. You can get like half effect on some of those, but still you can blow your entire combat efficacy and fail in one turn, and that just destroys you. You're done. Now in a game like Chrono Trigger, where they do this right, yeah, everyone expends a cost, I think, but you don't have
It's MP. It's
Yeah.
mana points, I think, and
Yeah.
I think they both need to. I
you
forget if
can't
they both have
miss.
to have their meter filled. I don't think they can miss. in
There's no
Chrono
fail
Trigger.
state. You either can do it or you can't. You can't like fuck up like you can't mess up the button press and then you whiff and you pass turn and you die.
Yeah, and so I thought that the team up moves were interesting from a perspective of when do you want to use these characters' resources. So a character, for example, one of the team up moves that I used all the time was Amy and Sonic's team up move, where Sonic turns into a little ball
Like
and
the
then Amy,
fastball special.
Yeah, it's fastball.
Hammers him. Yeah.
She hits him with a hammer at your enemies.
Wait, sorry, this is an important question, Gino.
Okay, yep.
Do we ever find out if her boyfriend's real or not? I assume he isn't.
I assume he isn't. I always assumed he wasn't. I was trying to have Sonic. I was playing Paragon Sonic, so I was being very nice to Amy and understanding, and I didn't call out her.
That's not what
her
he was
fake
looking
boyfriend.
for.
But if I played Renegade Sonic, maybe we would have found out a little bit more about Dexter.
Yeah, I think Dexter's fake, but I don't think we ever had it confirmed or not. But now that
Yes.
we've covered that, I'm sure the listeners have been dying to find out whether or not Dexter was real this whole time. But now that we've
Yes.
covered it, your point about combat, Gino.
So, an interesting thing with that team up attack in particular is that Amy was one of my slowest characters, and Sonic was by far the fastest. And because the team up attack is technically Sonic's move, that means that you can basically boost the effectiveness of Amy's power up to first action. Whereas if you wanted to use an ability from Sonic and then an ability from Amy, your enemy might get an opportunity to do something in between those two characters acting, like maybe heal themselves. So there were a lot of enemies in this game that were capable of healing themselves one way or another. And if I needed to do enough damage to overwhelmingly kill them in one blitz, because if I left them opportunity to act in between, they would heal themselves back to full health or something like that. So having Sonic go and then Amy go was not as strong as just having Sonic do a move with Amy's power kind of added in. And so I thought that it made for some interesting gameplay, how they did the team up attacks, but the original sin of this game is that if you screw up one of these QuickTime events, you get nothing.
Yep, you're done.
You just get sadness. Yeah, so other gameplay systems that we haven't talked about really. There's an overworld in this game?
Yeah,
There's an overworld, kind of.
It's a pretty interactive overworld.
You run around, you collect coins.
Those fucking the rings. Those goddamn rings.
Oh,
Why?
rings, right.
Why with the rings? Like, I get it's Sonic. I get it. But the rings were dumb. Like, what other RPG forces you? Like, you get money from beating things. That's how RPGs work. We've all agreed on the rules.
And on top of that, it means that... So in this game, there's a finite number of rings.
Yeah.
Other than when you're fleeing or when your enemy is fleeing, you can also get rings and kind of... Oh, I guess we didn't talk about running away. The running away minigame is actually pretty decent. Kind of. It's more interactive than most, although I sometimes just got completely fucked because when you're running away, your characters are kind of running on 4 different tracks, and there can be boxes or accelerators or rings that you have to kind of jump. You have to jump to avoid boxes. You want to run on these kind of boost pads, and then if you jump, you can get rings sometimes. and if you screw up enough, you either get caught by the enemy or the enemy escapes if you're chasing them. But it's fine. It's interesting. But back to the overworld. Because of the rings kind of having a set number, that means there's a finite amount of money just available in the game for the most part. Unless you're really grinding in battle. In these
Even I
escape
didn't want to grind that
sequences.
much.
Yes. And so that means that your access to just items, equipment, is severely handicapped if you're trying to use this store. I basically gave up on buying things at shops because the amount of money was finite. Like, buying healing items is really bad when there's only, if there's 1,000 rings in the entire world, are you going to spend 20 of them on a healing item when you could spend, 200 on a really good piece of equipment? It's just stupid.
Even a
You
not
shouldn't do
that good piece of equipment, you take a finite resource and turn it into a stat instead of a temporary heal.
Yeah, and you turn it into a stat. And then it also meant that buying the early game items was punishing because you spent some of your finite money that you will ever get in this entire game on this item that is outclassed in an hour. You should
Now,
only buy the good items.
The fact
at
that you
the
can
end of the
sell
game.
items was not that bad because if you wanted to, you could just grind like recovery items from battles and sell them and get.
Sell them for 3 rings a pop.
That's that's madness, but there's a way.
The answer is madness.
I'm not that mad.
In a lot of this game, the answer is madness.
Yeah.
What's left for combat mechanics? We have some outside overworld stuff that was actually kind of
Chows.
okay.
Chows. Yeah, you can equip them.
They were
give
like
you
little
special
fairies you
abilities.
equip.
You find them in eggs.
I don't-
Did you guys notice? So, chows, you find their eggs on the overworld, and then after a couple of seconds or minutes, they hatch.
Yep.
And it is random as to what chow you get.
Is it really?
Yes.
I did
It is
not pick up
random.
on that. I should have known.
There are 40 potential chows for you to find. There are a bunch of common chows, and then there are rare chows, and then there are unique chows.
Ooh, unique chows.
Can't you also like trade them and stuff?
You can, and the trading, I think, is how you increase their power or their level. But because I sure as fuck don't have any people who live near me who have Sonic Chronicles, the Dark Brotherhood,
Who are you going to trade with?
it was useless. That mechanic was completely useless to me. Which, it was kind of like having a Geodude or a Graveler in Pokemon Red if you didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
You were just screwed. You would never get a
Never
Golem.
get a Golem. Or Gengar, Alakazam, pick whoever.
Exactly. But for this, it was a lot worse because those chows are kind of important. And there were some chows that were just amazing. Like, one of the chows I got a unique chow that said that its ability was the equipped character does not need to perform QTEs to do moves.
That's a great chow.
I gave that chow
for that chow.
I gave that chow to my healer, and then I never had to worry about my healer failing to do a move ever again.
Jesus Christ.
It was a completely different game. When I didn't have to play the game so much, it was a better game.
Wow. What level was that?
I just got it in the back half of the
it was
game. Like, it's
Ferox,
random.
I think.
Yeah, Ferox. I got that dude, Ferox. Ferox is awesome. It made the game playable. It was amazing. I was so tense every time I had to do a heal move. I was like, do I even want to do this heal move? Because if I screw up, I just die. And then I was running out of healing items because I had screwed up the healing move too many times, and I just ran out of ways to heal my party. And then I
God,
got Ferox.
that just fixed your whole game.
Yep, it made the game good. But not, like, actually good.
Yeah,
Like,
not good,
relative to...
Tolerable.
Yes. But then there are some other chows, like Cheese, which is... that one you
cream.
actually...
Yeah.
And haha, cream and cheese. Haha,
Right.
haha.
We all get it. Way to go, Sonic Riders.
That's one of the only chows that you have to get, and it boosts your entire team's luck, which luck is actually secretly a super important stat, which I didn't realize. It increases your crit rate. It increases your likelihood to ambush and not be ambushed.
Oh, that's how they
am-
base ambush?
I think it's on luck.
What a piece of shit way to do it. Why didn't they do it like Chrono Trigger does it?
where you sneak
You're
up
like
on enemies.
facing
Yeah.
the enemy, or they like hit you in the back.
Yeah.
That's what I thought it would be too at
Why don't
first.
you just play Chrono Trigger?
It's a great question. It's
We
your
could all
pick
just have
next.
played
We could
Chrono
play
Trigger instead of this game. Yeah.
We could just play Chrono Trigger. That's your call.
Yeah.
But
We'll see.
the chows, I have 5 of the chow that adds fire element to your attack. 5 of them. I don't need another one.
Do you think you could eat a chow? Like on a scale of
no.
like chow to chocobo, what's more edible?
Chocobos are clearly more edible. There's more meat on their bones.
All right, fair enough.
But
Chow
I feel,
Well, they're like the Moogles of Sonic.
yeah, I think chows are like Moogles, and I think much like Moogles, it's probably a crime if you eat them.
Yeah, you're probably right.
They're probably too smart. But man, that system, if they just crafted it a little bit more, like there were some chows like boost your experience. It boosted the percentage of experience you got after battle. There was one that like restored PP to your entire party every turn.
Yeah. There's one that says heals all characters HP at the beginning of every combat phase.
Yeah, that's really good. And
Badass chow.
those are the types of abilities that if instead of making it a random lottery, which chow you got every single time, if they just gave you a manicured, progression of chows, this game could have been a lot better. But they didn't do that, so it's not.
Yep.
Did you guys find equipment to be meaningful?
I found I
numbers
found
go
that
up.
the stats that you get in this game scale. I don't know how to say this, but like one more point in a stat early on makes a big difference because you so infrequently get stats. So like Amy, for example, became one of my heaviest hitters because I statted her for strength, and she didn't get to go very often because I didn't boost her speed that much. But she hit like a Mack truck. Like she would slam pretty hard.
That is always our go-to power metaphor. I just want to point out. Like whenever we're talking about how hard anything hits, it's always Mack truck.
We could say we could say hit like a choo-choo train from Final Fantasy VII, like the
steam
opening
shovel?
sequence.
I don't know, man. It could
It
be
hits
like
like
a
when
jackhammer,
you lock eyes with someone across the room in a club. It hits like that.
like that. Like think of like an Usher video, like that
Yes.
eye contact. That's how hard Amy hits.
Exactly. My problem. So one, the attack stat that you were boosting. Did you notice that it increases your percent to hit and not actually your damage?
What
Attacks.
increases the damage?
There's just like damage. There's a couple of
Yeah,
of
whichever it
equipments
was
say-
that made her just hit harder. I forget
Yeah.
which stat I increased, but I just made the one that made her hit for more DPS.
There's no stat that you bone it like. They get more DPS as they level, and then there are a couple of items that say great increases damage, slightly increases damage,
Yeah.
increases damage, greatly increases damage, and it's not a number.
No.
You never get to see the number of what their damage stat is.
Why do it like that?
It's
I
attack.
don't know. No, the attack is percent to hit. It's not
Really?
actually damage.
Maybe I just fucking statted Amy so
But I
wrong.
thought the QTEs were what determined whether or not you hit.
QTEs
This game's
are
a
what
mess.
Oh,
Okay,
for POW moves as opposed to attack moves.
yes.
Yeah,
Basic attacks, it's attack.
Oh yeah,
It's complicated.
And your defense is not your armor. Defense is your percent to dodge physical attacks of your opponents. And then armor is your actual defense against damage.
How many
you get
video
hit.
game podcasters does it take to decipher Sonic Chronicles? It's at
I
least
don't
three.
know.
Also, can we talk about how shit these POW move descriptions are? I'm reading them right now. It's like Amy blows a kiss and makes one of her allies super happy, and they try their best.
Yeah,
Or it says, like-
that's a damage increase. It turns out is what
Yeah.
that means. Hey, Billy, remember when we were discussing Valda's story, and there was a stat
Game of the Year Valda story?
Yeah, Game of the Year Valda's story. And Reyna had a stat like she inflicted reckoning upon the opponent, and I didn't know what the fuck reckoning meant. Sonic Chronicles is kind of like that, but for every stat.
But come on,
Except, like, there
how
was...
cool is it when you read like inflicts reckoning on the opponent. Like, that's the greatest sentence I've ever heard.
Like, that sounds good, but when I see a PP move say something like, this move, it encourages one of your teammates and it makes them really hyper, so they go fast and stuff.
I don't know what hyper means. Is that good? Is that a good stat?
Look, this is a game where you're just arguing whether or not Amy's fake boyfriend is real. I think the bar has been lowered to accommodate these sort of descriptions.
Yeah, I just don't... The stats, I didn't know visually what each of them meant, what they were actually doing to my characters or for my characters. I didn't know whether they worked on all enemies. It turns out this game is actually pretty fair about status effects. You can perform status effects on just about every enemy type I found, which most games, if you have a negative status effect, bosses are magically immune to them.
Which is a pain in the ass every time.
Yeah, so I was able to do just about anything other than insta-kill bosses. Another thing we haven't discussed about the overworld specifically is each of your characters has a movement ability associated with them on top of their combat abilities.
You'll never guess what Sonic's is.
It's going fast.
Really?
Yes.
What is Tails? Does Tails fly?
He flies.
What? How did I know?
He's a fox. He shouldn't fly. But he can. Knuckles can climb walls.
Yep.
He can punch things real hard also.
Amy hammers stuff.
Rouge can fly instead of Tails.
Yep. So each of these characters has their own movement abilities, and based on which locations you're going to, you just kind of need certain movement abilities to navigate the map at all.
But there will be no indication of which one you'll need. At no point will you know prior to arriving at the area.
Yes. And then you will need to backtrack back to wherever your home base is, because there are a couple of home bases, and then you can reselect your party.
That's just gross.
And sometimes your home base is on early on in the game, I only found one home base, and it was in the Metro City or whatever.
Yeah, Tails' workshop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I went to Green Hill Zone or Big the Cat Stinky Swamp or whatever the hell that place was called, I think it was the Mystic Ruins.
Nah, the Cat Stinky Swamp.
So whenever I needed a new character there, I had to run all the way back to Metro City, back to Tails' fucking workshop, so that I could change characters and then run all the way back to wherever I fucking was so I could use their ability.
I'm sorry, I can't stop laughing about inflicting reckoning.
That's fair.
They told you what it meant in the player's handbook.
Doesn't matter.
I'm sure that Sonic Chronicles: the Dark Brotherhood also said in the player's handbook what each of these stats did, but just like in Valda's story, I didn't read that fucking thing.
I don't think making your friend hyper actually did something in...
It does.
It does? It's probably haste.
Damage. It's either increases their speed or increases their damage. I forget.
Whatever, man. It was written by some 11-year-old.
It wasn't written by an 11-year-old. It was written by an adult who was
paid to do this.
The dialogue, dear Lord, the dialogue.
Okay, we'll get to that in a sec. I just want to on the movement abilities. Again, this could have been a good way to encourage you to diversify your party and use characters you otherwise would not use. The problem is, you need to, before you get there, you need to say, hey, maybe we need to bring Big the Cat.
Yep.
Hey, or you know what? Force me to use those characters because I need to.
They did in some cases.
But very rarely.
Very rarely.
Mostly when it was story-related, not movement-related.
Yeah, so there were plenty of times where I got off the ship with my crew, because this is my crew who's actually good in combat, but then I get to a spot where it's like, fuck, I need Big the Cat.
Yep.
Or you just, let us do it from the start screen.
And even more frustrating was the fact that each of these movement abilities has 3 different levels. You have speed level 1, level 2, level 3. And some of your characters, as they level up, will get better versions of each of these movement abilities. But some of these characters are kind of diversified, and some of them are very linear. Like Sonic only has speed. He has no other movement abilities. Whereas Knuckles has climbing and flying, and he can break blocks. But Knuckles has like level 1 flying, level 1 climbing, and like level 2 block breaking. But
He should
Amy,
get better climbing, I think. That's his primary, I think.
well, I don't think there's I never saw a level 2 climb that you needed to do. But Amy, since she is the person who's primary block breaking, she is the only person who has level 3 block breaking. So you can create a party where you're like, oh, I've got everything covered. I've got a guy who can break blocks. I got a guy who can climb. I got someone who can fly. It's like, no, sorry, Rouge of the Bat can only fly level 2. You really need Tails or Cream because they're the only ones who can fly level 3. And, oh, you thought you were good on breaking blocks, but Knuckles can't punch these. Sorry. Double back.
How does Cream fly? She flop her ears?
She flops her ears.
Okay.
So this game, at least probably 7 or 8 different times, I doubled back because I found suddenly this area that only one specific character can get through, and usually that one specific character was not someone who I cared to have in my party because they were either junk in combat or I just didn't like playing as them. Another problem with this overworld, the enemies constantly respawn.
Another problem with this overworld is that movement is garbage, just like regular movement. You have to just like stylus guide. You can't actually like use a D-pad or the control stick. You have to stylus tap everywhere you want to go.
That's what happens when you start the premise with, all right, what if we had a Sonic game, but he was just super fucking slow?
Basically.
Yeah.
I think Sonic actually was the fastest character in the overworld.
Sure. Whatever.
Was he noticeably... I think there was a difference. If you load up, I think if you go into the overworld, Sonic moves faster.
Well, because I was about to... Well, whatever. We'll say it later.
Like, if you roll out with Big, and then you roll out with Sonic, I think they're slower, faster or slower. I'm trying that right now.
Okay, you know what?
At
the end of the day, it doesn't really super matter because the controls were just finicky enough where... one thing, when you run away from enemies, because I found myself wanting to run away from most of the enemies in the middle part of the game because they dealt too much damage and I just didn't have the healing items to deal with them, and they definitely didn't give enough experience to make it worth me actually fighting them.
They intentionally cripple your experience so you can't grind. If you fight the same group of enemies more than like once or twice, you just start getting 10 EXP no matter what.
Yes. But that doesn't mean they stop spawning them.
And they're still potentially lethal.
Yeah, yep. They will kill you.
They are just as lethal, but they give you no reward. And if you run from an enemy, instead of that enemy kind of vanishing from the overworld, they just kind of blink for a couple seconds.
And then
they chase you again. But if the enemies run from you, they vanish for like a couple minutes. It's just... all of these baffling design decisions.
It almost incentivizes you to lose those chase after me parts.
I threw the chase after me parts multiple times because I was like, well, this is just as good as me killing them. I miss out on like a healing item that they'd probably deal more damage than the healing item heals, and then I miss out on a little bit of experience, but who gives a shit? Because when I want to win a battle, I just throw all my healing items at my party, and then I just attrition them to death.
Yep.
I let the inexorable march of time kill them.
You know, the more I think about this, I really feel like we're being too hard on Sonic Chronicles. And it's really just a metaphor for the meaninglessness. Like, this is the perfect nihilistic video game. And just time marches on. There's nothing you can do. Everything's garbage.
Is that just, if we want to zoom this lens out a little bit more, that's just a criticism on the Sonic franchise?
There's a meta story here that we're all missing.
But with that in mind, is there anything else about the gameplay that we want to talk about with Sonic Chronicles? Audible sigh?
Nah, man. I just don't want to talk any more about this game.
Let's talk about the incredible story, then.
Let's talk about the incredible story.
Kill me, please.
No. We have more podcasts.
This is a fate worse than death, and you will live. You will live.
God,
so,
please.
Segue. We have... And segues are always better when you call them out in advance.
Yep.
A nice way to bridge from the gameplay to the story is the quests in Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood.
No, I didn't. Did you do any?
I did some of them.
I did some.
I maybe did like one, and I was like, screw this.
Yeah, so the quests in this game, there's where I could tell that this was made by BioWare, because their quest design felt like a weird throwback to maybe Baldur's Gate or some Western RPG where you're just kind of taking a quest from a quest giver, doing a thing for them, coming back, and then they give you a line of dialogue, an item, and some experience. And that's it. Most of the quests in this game are go to a place, find a thing, run back.
Yep. Fetch quests.
There are a lot of fetch quests. There are occasionally some quests where it's go to this place and kill a thing. And then there are a handful that are go to a place and there's a puzzle there. And you just kind of have people stand on spots. And then it solves the puzzle and you get some experience. The quests were not super great. But so Pete, you did not do any quests?
I did like one, and then like you're describing them fairly accurately. I decided this is not worth my time, and then ceased doing them.
See, because I was running from so many battles, I thought the quests might be able to replace the experience that I was not getting from battles. And it seemed like it might be faster than fighting a single battle to just like run to wherever it is and get the thing.
Maybe.
That was my mental calculus. I regret my decision, but...
Your original decision, or...
I was faced with a Sophie's Choice, so I had to pick one of them, I thought.
The Sophie's Choice where you wanted both children to die.
Yes. So, since you didn't do any quests, Billy, you did not do any... How many quests did you do, Billy?
Everyone that I found, actually.
Billy, you've been hating on this game since we started, and yet you did every quest you could find.
It was the only part of the game that was even remotely intellectually stimulating.
Was it?
Some of them actually required you to think for about 4 seconds on a level 1 puzzle. I mean, the rest of this game is basically smash your face into the DS until you either pass out or your batteries run out.
I feel like this is just an example. You just can't help yourself. It's a quest. You need to do it.
I think it's because I was starving for some actual gameplay, and this was the closest I could get.
In the desert, anything will do.
Yeah, right? When the situation is so dire.
Some of these quests, man, they are just...
Some of these quests, man.
Split up the party. Have one person go stand on a switch, and then it makes a door opens. Send somebody else through there. For what reason? I don't know. Pick up an item. It's going to appear as a coin over your head. Drop it into a slot, and then you just get EXP and an item for no reason.
To hell with the puzzles.
That wasn't the thing that bothered me. Some of them are just straight up pop culture references that are completely non sequiturs to anything else. There was one quest where I needed to save a kid named Little Timmy from a well. Timmy fell in a well.
That seems strange for a game full of anthropomorphized animals.
Yeah, when we talk about the story, I will talk about how that's incongruous, but I think
Isn't
that's
that like a
Sonic
reference to Lassie?
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. There was one where I needed to get someone a stapler, his red stapler that he loved so much.
Who is the target audience for this game? Like,
that's my question.
Are going to get Office Space references.
Either a 9-year-old or a 40-year-old. Nothing in between.
I don't know. There was one quest where he had a hologram of a monster, and I broke his hologram, and he was like, "You meddling kids!" I was trying to scare people. Like, I lost my job, and I was trying to scare people away using these holograms, and I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling hedgehogs. And I was like, how many different references to better pieces of media is this game going to have in its quest design in a game that has maybe 20 quests? How many of them are going to just be references?
Is there a big overlap between Office Space fans and the furry community that I'm just not aware of?
Maybe?
Like, maybe this Venn diagram has a huge middle slice that we're all just unaware of.
Maybe. Hopefully.
God can only hope.
It's mind-boggling.
Like mind's all in a boggle?
Yes. Oh, there was a pretty great time at one point when I had a little kid in my inventory.
You had a kid in your inventory?
Yeah, there was a quest where you saved a kid from like a monster, and then you needed to escort him home. And
But
the
it
way
wasn't
they
an escort
referenced that-
mission. It was a put him in your pocket and carry
You
him
put him
away.
in your
mission.
pocket.
Like, could you discard this
No.
errant child?
No.
Key item.
He was a key item, but
You could just
he was a
use
key
it in
item.
battle. Like you throw a child at the robot or something.
That's what I wanted. I liked being able to go into my inventory and just look at him, just like, you're fucking here now, kid.
It's like,
a lot of
I don't know.
RPGs let you use a move called throw item. Usually ninjas get it.
Yeah. I was gonna
But
say, like,
nope.
just like a message pops up. The robot's visor is covered with gore and viscera. Like, you can't see.
Oh no.
The child got chopped up in this propeller.
I kind of want to go through this game again and rescue the child and then just never take him home.
Just never return him. Trapped in a
Shit.
nowhere hellscape that is your inventory.
Oh my god.
And then you take him.
You know what it would be though? It'd be a nice reversal of the Pokemon dynamic, where you're carrying these animals around with you in your inventory. Now the animals carry us.
And it'd be a nice
Jesus.
reversal of Sonic 2006 where he makes out with a princess.
We should have just watched that scene over and over again for this podcast.
Next, who's to say we're not doing that
I
next?
still have the pick. I could pick it.
Okay, so the story. You mentioned it earlier on. There's
Yeah.
some evil
So-
kid, the Nocturnus.
The
The Nocturnus.
a society of evil echidnas.
Yeah. That's
With-
also kind of a big deal because Knuckles was supposed to be the only echidna.
Yeah. That's
So they
what it-
actually used this game to like add a really important layer to the Sonic universe.
and that's where the moral dilemma comes in. You know, will Knuckles support Sonic and the gang in fighting off these echidnas, or will his longing for his home and his people overcome the power of friendship? A timeless tale.
A truer tale has never been told.
All right. So yeah, the Nocturnus, they steal all the Chaos Emeralds. Somehow, I honestly forget how, but somehow you get transported into space, and you have to recruit rock
Eggman
aliens.
helps you.
Yeah, Eggman sends you to space. You have to recruit rock aliens, slime aliens, and psychic slime aliens to help you defeat the evil echidna. What was it, Emperor X or something?
Emperor Ix,
Emperor X.
Emperor Final Fantasy IX.
Emperor
and-
IX.
the Nocturnus peeps.
Yeah,
The-
and it's
the
not
bad
just
ones.
people, his droids and things. You have to fight them. You defeat him. You escape. Tails learns to believe in himself as he's piloting whatever it
It's
is.
basically VV, but he's just not as cool at all.
And then
Anyway.
twist ending, you come back to find seemingly a much larger expanse of time than you thought had passed. Eggman has betrayed you and taken over the world, and this is where they're setting it. They were so confident a sequel was coming, and it just never will. So you finish on that cliffhanger, living in Eggman's dystopian hellscape.
The cliffhanger is actually, I think that you get like shot down or something, and you don't quite make it out of the
Oh,
dimension.
everybody dies? I didn't know.
Yeah, I hope so.
Sorry.
I think the cliffhanger was that they didn't make it out of the other dimension, so if we're lucky, they'll just be fucking stuck there.
Yeah,
So
this
that is-
game starts. It starts with you shooting Eggman out of the sky and fucking thinking you wasted him.
Yeah, it's like Eggman
That's how it's-
had mission accomplished.
The way the story explained that away was that Eggman anticipated his defeat and planned like a condition
Yeah.
to save himself because he assumed that he was going to get defeated. What
Yeah,
the
which is
fuck kind of
interesting.
storytelling is that?
Well, it's an interesting psychological dilemma that like Eggman is so like inwardly crushed by his own failures that he just assumes defeat every time. That's like if they just did a psychological profile of Dr.
Eggman?
Egg, PhD.
Dr.
would-
Robotnik, PhD. After he says I rescued myself, I escaped on this escape ship, and then this robot nursed me back to health
What?
because I was very injured. It's like, oh god, what is this? What is Sonic and his buddies doing? Like at one point, Tails is supposed to make an ultimate weapon with Dr. Robotnik. They were going to combine their intellects, and Robotnik's like, let's make this cannon,
Yeah.
and it'll just kill all of them. And Tails like, no, let's make a beam that teleports them away.
We like to be
And-
non-lethal,
It's like very intentionally a non-lethal weapon.
except
Yes.
when we murder Eggman in cold blood.
And except when they need to defeat these Nocturnus, but then Sonic is getting attacked by enemy ships, and they realize, oh shit, we need to shoot them down with anti-air guns.
It just becomes inconvenient, and Tails is like, all right, whatever.
Fuck all of them.
Let's just
kill them all. And you just shoot them out of the fucking sky.
Find their children.
End their lineage.
What is GUN an acronym for, too?
Fuck if I know.
Do we know?
I don't know, man.
Government Union Network. I don't know.
All right, whatever.
Why is there an armed military in the Sonic universe?
That's another great question. Why are there people in the Sonic universe?
Is it weird for them to see anthropomorphic animals? Because you fucking kill animals.
Yeah. That's what I'm wondering. Like, what is the relationship between these animals and other... Like, Rouge, like, they have to eat something. Like, Big the Cat is carnivorous.
You beat an armadillo. There's a character in the Knuckles Chaotix universe who is just an armadillo.
With no special traits. Just is the same kind of armadillo you would find in our world.
Very slow. He offers nothing to the team. They're very good swimmers, though. Better than you'd expect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
For a while there, early on, I was like, you meet with Gun, and they tell you about their plan, and they're like, we have the Chaotix out there, scoping stuff out.
Yeah, then an alligator calls.
And Vector the crocodile calls. It's like, yo, what's up? And I was like, oh, shit. Am I eventually going to unlock the fucking Chaotix as characters I can play? Am I going to have Charmy the Bee in my team? No. The answer was no.
You get Eggman for a little while, though, and he runs super weird.
Yes. But he has no movement abilities, which was a good tip that he was not going to stay on my team for very long.
Yeah, that is a good note.
Just the story. So, the story's really bad up until the midpoint, where, yet again, this like called out to every single
bad
JRPG.
in a different way? Like...
No, but it was like a call out to a lot of JRPGs where all of a sudden you go to fucking space.
Yeah.
Like, that happens in so many different games. Like, Final Fantasy
That's
IV,
true.
At some point you go to space. In
Final Fantasy
Chrono
VIII.
Trigger, Final Fantasy VIII, you go to space. Final Fantasy VII, you go to space.
Chrono Trigger takes you to space, too.
Chrono Trigger takes you to space.
I think Blue Dragon might.
Blue Dragon, does it?
Maybe. I can't remember. It takes you a lot of weird places.
Final Fantasy V, you go to space. Final Fantasy VI, you go to an alternate world. It is not space, but it is like another world. Long story short, you go to space a lot. Yeah. Like, the idea of we're going to go to this other world in the second half. And I found that the second world was far more interesting than the Sonic world, and it was largely because that seemed like it was where BioWare was just on home turf.
Yeah, the aliens were at least vaguely interesting.
Yes. It was just like, let's take those Mass Effect...
Guys.
What'd you say?
When I was listing the aliens, they're also an energy-based alien that I forgot to mention.
Yeah. And it's like, all of a sudden, BioWare is removed from the shackles of the Sonic license, and they can just make up weird aliens. They could get the Mass Effect people on the line.
So, now I got a real question for the squad, is what do you think the odds are that this game actually did start out as something different, but just got picked up and slapped Sonic onto it? Kind of like Star Fox Adventures.
No, there's no way.
This is, I think, a 0% chance.
This is a game that was based entirely on the Sonic brand.
Then I just can't think of any way that this game could be saved.
No, like that's I think the key question here is how much work can a brand do? Like before you're just insulting your audience beyond all reason.
I mean, I think that the Sonic franchise has been asking that question of its audience all the time, and the answer is all the work. It can actually, a brand can do 100% of the work.
Is there a better example of this phenomena than Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games? Is that the pinnacle of brand prostituting?
I'm not sure, because that game you can at least take at face value. I said this is going to be like a mini game, like Rush, like a Mario Party version of.
This is an Olympic tie-in game, and it's the only one on this console. So some people who want to get in on the Olympic spirit Maybe.
I feel
Now,
like
we have increasingly small Venn diagrams, like fairies who love Office Space. Now, we owners who are super passionate about the Olympics.
but if you're gonna say that, Pete, I think you have to say that about like Mario Tennis, Mario Golf.
No, because those games are good.
Because
Yeah,
Mario
I know
Tennis-
they're good,
yeah,
but they
I
should
like
be
Mario-
included by the parameters that Pete just set.
Yeah, all
I
right,
know, but-
that's branding too. But like, you could salvage if you took Mario Tennis and you just like put other skins on it, it would still be a pretty good game. You know?
Yeah, but
And
it wouldn't be Mario Tennis. Like
No.
I'll fight for Mario Golf specifically because I'm a big golfer, and when I was a kid, I wanted to find good golf video games. But Tiger Woods Pro Tour was garbage, so Mario Golf was where it's at, and it was fun. It wouldn't have been fun without the layer of Mario,
That might be fair.
because the whole reason I'm playing that game was that the courses were like toadstools and shit, you know.
Yeah.
Like you were kind of put into the Mushroom Kingdom on the Mushroom Kingdom's golf courses. Here they gave us a little bit of Green Hill Zone, so I'm like, oh cool, like a little bit of nostalgia. But then no, fuck, you were going to like space for the second half of the game to fight an alien onslaught. Oh, that's not Sonic. What?
Why is he so slow?
Sonic's not going very fast in this DS game.
Yeah, but at least in the second half of that game, there's a section on mutually assured destruction that I enjoyed.
Share
There's
with
two
us.
aliens that are at
Yeah.
war. There's two aliens that are at war. The slug people and the energy people are at war and always have been at war. And the reason that the Nocturnus can enslave both of them is that they basically beat up both of them and made them play nice. And they won't join you because they are loyal to the Nocturnus, because they were each gifted a Chaos Emerald that assured that they could destroy each other. But they are both in this uneasy peace because they are both so afraid that the other side will unleash some sort of cataclysm on them, which I thought was cool. But that's one line of dialogue in this entire fucking game, so it doesn't exactly make good on it.
Spoken by a big ball of slime.
Yes. It's not exactly, Odin coming down from the sky and raining a spear and blowing up a tree or something.
No, much different.
But oh man, the second half of this game. So I think I've made it clear I didn't like this game. None of us.
No,
I
none
don't
of us
think
did.
liked this game.
I specifically said that I got about halfway through. Once I figured out we were going to space and I knew this was going to go to that RPG town, I actually quit. I quit this game somewhere through chapter fucking 5. I don't know.
But I guess along the lines of how much work can a brand do, another question is how much can you expect a player to play before they really get to explore the fullness of your combat systems and your gameplay mechanics? Like, how far in can you string someone along before you give them the tools to the toy box?
So,
piece-
a couple
Based
games come to
on
mind.
Final Fantasy VIII, what would it be, like 30 hours? Is that how long you can string somebody along?
Final
before you
Fantasy
actually get to-
13. Anybody?
8, you got a lot of the core mechanics, like 3-4 hours in. You get more tools later on, but it's not like a bad game up until that point.
Sorry.
Are you saying 8 or 9?
Oh, I'm sorry. Which one are we playing?
9.
Oh, 9. Yeah, then whatever I said, but make it 9. Roman numerals are tough.
Yeah, I think 9 is another question where 9 doesn't really give you all. You don't have all the characters until like halfway through the game. Same
Dare
thing
I
with Sonic.
say? Dare I say something bad about a Kingdom Hearts game? But Kingdom Hearts 2 had us play for about 20 hours as Roxas, and then we just got Sora.
Kingdom Hearts, one of the best games ever, except for that first 20 hours.
Oh shit!
That's super weird, but this game, once I got access to all of my characters and I actually got to pick who was in my party, I didn't mind it so much because then I could actually explore how these mechanics worked, which of these abilities I actually valued and thought were good, and that was kind of enjoyable.
You
Yeah.
know, this game is bad when Until Dawn has a more linear storyline.
Has a more linear or less linear?
Just better.
more linear, because the hard left turn in Until Dawn makes more sense than the hard left turn of Sonic going to fucking other dimension in space.
Was Until
fair.
Dawn Wendigos?
Yes, the
Wendigos.
Wendigos.
The Wendigo turn was a big turn.
But like, once I got access to everyone and got to pick who I was using, I didn't mind it so much. Like, I had my squad. I had Sonic, because you have to, which I hate that the main character has to always be in your party, but what can you do? Sonic, and then I picked Amy, Cream the Rabbit, and Omega, the robot. Those were my dudes.
Even when you change up the squad, it's still just, all right, which one of these can attrition better? Like, it's not as if they play radically differently.
But
Except
there were some...
Maybe Cream. Cream does play. I mean, she's support.
Cream is she's the cream of the crop when it comes to support.
My squad...
Billy, edit that out. That,
No.
second pun right there. Just cut that one out.
It's all staying, man.
All of it. Top to bottom.
This is going to be just the unfiltered subconscious podcast. My squad was Sonic, Amy, Cream, Knuckles, because I liked the Sonic, Amy, Knuckles combo move.
The thing that
I gotta say mine first.
Okay, go ahead.
Mine was Sonic, Shadow, because he's a badass. The robot, and Cream.
And Cream?
Yeah.
So, wait, all three of us used Cream?
Yeah.
Well, we had to have like a support, so like...
She's the only character who is just like a white mage.
Yeah.
She has all of the stock abilities that you would want.
Yeah.
She has the ability to heal everyone. She has the ability to revive people at more than 10% health. She can cure all negative status effects. Like, she just had the most utility.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if you didn't have Cream in your party, you just unlocked about 80 different other fail states.
Yep.
For your
Or
team,
you're just spamming items constantly.
which you can't do. It's not possible.
Cream was the only person who had a move that could cure PP consistently. And that's important.
Or your chows.
Still had to nail that QTE, though.
Yes, of course. Until I got my Chow, and then the game became better.
Nightmare fuel.
But some of the differences were just whether moves were armor piercing or not, because some of the enemies had very high defense, and because Knuckles and the robot had have armor piercing moves, they had a baseline of usefulness in a way that some of the other characters just went from dealing like 50 damage to nothing.
Yep.
At least I can guarantee that I was dealing like 70 or 100 damage if they were in my party. And then Amy, her team-up attack with Sonic did good damage if your enemy didn't have a ton of defense. Like, there were good reasons to use most characters. I would say there's no good reason to use Rouge the Bat that I could find. There was basically no good reason for me to use Big the Cat unless I had the game force me to.
Or if you really love fishing for whatever reason in Sonic games.
There was no good reason for me to use Tails, the fucking Tails.
Tails' combat efficacy was not garbage in the early game, because if you were able to nail the support abilities, they were like multi-turn support abilities, and that was kind of cool because it had it let you use Tails' support abilities, but then use Tails, and he was still supporting while he was doing other stuff. That was the only upside about Tails.
Yeah, but my problem was then I unlocked Cream the Rabbit, and she
did
just everything Tails
absolutely
did, but better.
outclassed. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was weird. Like, this game, as soon as it let me play with all of the systems, I suddenly found something to glom onto. But until that happened, I was adrift.
Actually, Tails is one of the best characters to do amp damage against robots.
Yes, and he has usefulness against robots specifically. Yeah. Which go away after the beginning of the game. So.
Once you get out of the first half of the game, robots go away and you get Cream, so Tails is just gone by.
Which is a shame, because a lot of Sonic's team-up attacks involve Tails.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Which is another problem. Like, if they wanted to break up the party and, like, introduce you to all these characters, force me to use characters that have team-up attacks in the same squad. Like, give me a good reason to use those. Otherwise, I'm just going to stick with the characters that I know how to use and that I know work. This game's got problems. Final thoughts, anyone, on this train wreck?
I think any game would be made, I'll say, close to 50% better by including Shadow in it. Any game. Pick a game, it'd be better with Shadow.
All right.
Pete, you actually got to the end of this, right?
Yeah.
You know how in Mass Effect and most BioWare games, like right before the last mission, if you go down a romance line, like a character pulls you aside and is like, "Oh, might be the last time we have before this final mission.
Yeah.
Let's snog."
Yeah.
Does that happen if you're nice to Amy or Rouge the Bat in this game?
Not that I saw, but I didn't really talk to Rouge that much. I think I'd be more of a Rouge guy than an Amy guy, but I didn't see the opportunity. I tried to pull Shadow aside, but this game was made in a slightly less progressive era. I don't think BioWare considered that possibility.
It's fair. Okay, because it seemed like if I just kept picking the Paragon options, I was like, is this going to be, how BioWare is this going to be?
We gonna bang or what?
How BioWare are we going to be? No, it wasn't.
Not
it wasn't that BioWare. Okay.
No.
I asked the internet, and the internet said that there's absolutely no story impact at all on any dialogue options in the whole game.
Did they make a comment about Dexter, whether his ontological status, as it were?
I don't know,
Okay.
and I also don't really care.
We'll supplement that in our next podcast. We'll answer all these.
My final thoughts about Sonic Chronicles : The Dark Brotherhood
Very good. Good work.
is that this game had a lot of ideas, some of which could have been really cool. The ones that were unique to it, like the QTE combat sequences, which weren't actually unique because other games have done that, but it was kind of new to this generation of games, or it was brought back. It was sort of revived.
Sure.
I think they failed at what they were trying to accomplish. I think that some of the other parts of this game that tried to do it also kind of failed to execute very well. So in many ways, I think this game is just an epic tale of wasted potential. Fix some of the mechanical stuff, take out Sonic, put some actual decent writing and storytelling in this game.
You just
Shit, I'm just saying,
game. Like,
rewrite the game into something
If
totally
this game
new.
was
Like
different in
Chrono
every way.
It would be good.
If this game were Chrono Trigger, it would have been.
If this game were Chrono Trigger, it would be good. Yep, that's my final thought. My final thought is if this game was Chrono Trigger, it would actually be good.
Weirdly enough, this game got one Chrono Trigger out of Chrono Trigger, but it's not anything like it. So,
No.
I don't know. I guess my final thought is I wanted to play this game because I had to know. I wanted to know how did this happen? Who could have let this happen? What does BioWare having the Sonic license look like? And it's bad. It's a bad game. It turns out that you take a lot of JRPG leanings, you throw it into a blender with the Sonic license, and then you take kind of the worst elements of Western RPG quest design, and like the worst elements of the dialogue system popularized in BioWare RPGs. You take all of the punch from those elements and you remove them, and that's where you're left. You're left with Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. I'm sorry. And now, on to the next game.
All right. I
Your
am
pick.
King of the Hill for this one. So I'm going to continue my one-man war against VR, and I'm going to pick a game that was seemingly specifically designed for it, see if it holds up, and it seems interesting in a lot of other ways too, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But after that drum roll, the game I am picking is Thumper.
Yes.
Anticlimactic title.
All
But
right. I'm down with
seems
some Thumper.
a good game, and this is, if Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood was weird, inexplicable, and strange for all the worst reasons, this one is weird, inexplicable, and strange for all the best reasons.
I mean, also, if we were lacking in the speed experience, we're probably going to get it now.
That's a good point.
Yes. That's true. Thumper is the secret sequel to Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood.
No.
They're really meant to be played in succession.
No.
It was a 12-year design cycle.
God, please.
Turns out Thumper is what is it, the Twilight prison or whatever the fuck it's called?
Twilight Cage.
Yeah.
Another great example of a game that would be better with Shadow the Hedgehog in it, though.
God.
I bet if you went on Steam Workshop, there might be a Shadow the
just a
Hedgehog
put.
mod for Thumper.
That'd be sweet.
God, no. It just hurts me.
Reminder, if you want to get in touch with the show and help Billy's sense of confidence and self-esteem come back, you can send a tweet at DeepListensPod on Twitter. You can go ahead, hit us up, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We've got comment sections. And then if you want to send us an email, go ahead, deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you, Billy.
Thank you, Gino. Thank you, Pete. I hope everyone has enjoyed this completely unedited podcast.
You edit some stuff. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you sweep along next time. And please do give feedback. Kyle provided you with an excellent example.
And thank you, Internet, for joining us on this ride. Till next time, peace!